Hello, my name is Jay Chauhan. I'm the author of a novel called Love in the Empire. And I wrote this novel, took me 5 years to write. And today I'm going to reflect on the Family Day that we celebrate in Canada on about I think the 18th of February each year. So what does it mean to me in the context of this novel? So it's good to celebrate the Family Day and remember the concept of family. And in this video, I just want to reflect on the historical aspect of the family and what it means today. So first of all, what is the concept of family? Man, woman, children is historically the oldest institution in the society in the history of mankind, but it's transformed enormously in the last, I would say, 50 years, and particularly in North America, where the stability of the family is very much questioned. And I would estimate that about 45% of the families break up in Canada, and the divorce rate is even higher in the US. So it seems to me that as the society gets more prosperous, economically more advanced, the number of children that there are in the family, which is 1.4 in Canada, 1. Roughly 8 in US, and India is about 2.1% children per family, and those rates reflect the changes in the demographics, reflect changes that result as a result of economic development. But just coming back to the novel, how was it in the past, which I've reviewed in my novel called Love in the Empire? And it was a situation where the Indian society was very stable, predominantly Hindu. Muslims came to India and the different family structure. There was possible to have more than one wife in the Muslim family, but not in the Hindu family, except in the very ancient times. But in the more recent history, which is in Indian terms, can mean hundreds of years. So the Muslims came about 1100, after 1100, and stayed until the British took over in about 1857, but started shipping and connecting with India through the East India Company in about from 1600 onwards. So all this has Indian family style in the Western world, where we are now coming together, is affecting the concept of the family. So I think in terms of the modern times, in the time when the British came to India, there were a lot of marriages between the British who came and the Mughal elite, where they married their daughters and women there. And there is a whole community of Anglo-Indians that is very much known in India, a little less outside of India. But there is at the time of independence of India in 1947, there were almost 1 million people who were called Anglo-Indians, means the children of people where the fathers usually were Europeans and the women were usually Indian, and that population grew and became a part of the Indian society. So now it is in the reverse order that happened, which I portrayed in my story, which is a non-fiction but more an autobiographical style story, in which I've described the events of my own life, but I changed the names and different things so that I can keep some sense of privacy. But I've tried to be as open as possible to explain what happened to many people like me, who in the 1960s, when Britain basically started withdrawing from the colonies, then we were connected with the British society through education and even through marriage. So it played out differently, where a lot of people from the colonies came to the West, in Canada, UK, Australia, and it has affected the dynamics of the relationship between the different societies, including the marriage and the concept of family. So the families are getting, in countries like Canada, very multicultural. I would estimate that there's about 5% of the families are between the different races and ethnic groups. And it is still not the norm, but it is likely to be the norm of the society is the children in that same society find more in common with different people. In my view, what happened in the 19th century and well into the early 20th century was essentially the races were separate. And the separation of the races made the color prejudice more predominant, especially after 1857 when the East India Company took over the Delhi. And about 10 years later, the Prime Minister of England, who was Disraeli at the time, declared the Crown of England, which is Queen Victoria at the time, in 1877, the Empress of India. So those symbolic institutions of how the two societies connected had the long-term effect of how the culture of England, the language included, got translated into the culture of India. And today India speaks English, especially in the upper classes and educated people. And it has resulted in a lot of migration and a lot of people now moving to countries like Canada from India, and the concept of family is going to affect them also in how they live in this country. If not their generation, it'll be the next generation. So I hope that you'll read the novel and see my experience and my ideas on the modern life, including the family. And I hope that you'll enjoy the novel, and I'll post more videos that affect the novel and the social issues of today on the website, or not a website, but rather the page on the Facebook called the Love in the Empire. Hope you enjoyed the novel.